My name is Silas, and my friends and colleagues know two very important things about me. I'm a conductor, and I love coffee, especially espresso. No matter where I travel in the world, the first thing I try to do is find the best coffee shop and learn about the local coffee drinking habits. If I can, I try to meet up with old friends or make new ones in a coffee shop, of course, so we can talk about life, art, music, or whatever's on our minds. I found that there's no better way to get to know a conductor a little better than by having coffee with the maestro. Today I'm having coffee with Andrew Crust. He's the assistant conductor of the Vancouver Symphony Orchestra, and recently it was announced he's the incoming music director of the Lima Symphony Orchestra in Ohio. He's a really nice guy, and we have this in common. We both studied with Gary Lewis in Boulder, Colorado, so I'm going to give him a call and get to know him a little bit better. Hey, Andrew, how's it going?
Hey there, good to see you.
Nice to see you too. Thanks for having coffee with me. This is my second coffee of the day because you made me wait till the afternoon to get together.
You're a little bit ahead of me. I'm West Coast times, so I can drink coffee any hour of the day.
Yeah, nice. What are your normal like coffee habits? How much coffee do you drink a day and how many?
I always start in the morning with black coffee, generally like two big mugs. Like I got my Elvis mug here because I
Yeah.
lived in this for 2 years. I always start with two full things. I almost never drink espresso. You got espresso there, I see.
Yeah, it's kind of the only thing I drink. Very rarely I'll have a cappuccino if I'm feeling extra. And then if I'm in a place where they just don't have any espresso or any fancy stuff, I'll be polite and I'll drink black coffee, but I really don't like it.
I love the taste of espresso, but I don't know. Coffee for me it's like a survival thing. So not only do I love the taste, but the quantity is quite nice, right?
Yeah, I like. Speaking of quantity, the thing I like about a shot of espresso is that you just down the sucker. I sip mine slowly, but you can do it in like a second, and then you're
Yeah,
done. Then you got your
yeah.
energy for like the next 5 hours. You're good to go.
But yeah, I gotta have. I don't think there's been a single day, unless I've been camping or maybe super sick, that I've not had coffee every single like for years.
Really,
Yeah.
that's amazing. So you're hooked.
Oh, totally. I'm addicted. If I don't drink it, I get a headache.
I get a little weirded out when people are like, "Oh, I don't drink coffee." Like,
I
what?
don't. It's like
I hope you're not on crack or something else that's even worse. But yeah,
right.
you in? Let me guess. You're in Vancouver right now.
I'm in Vancouver. Yeah, riding out the storm here. It's a beautiful place to be in the summer.
Yeah, and then are you Canadian originally? I think I read that somewhere.
I'm not. Sometimes if people assume that, I don't correct them. But no, no, I'm not. I'm from Kansas City.
Oh
I
no,
have,
I knew that. I knew you're from Kansas City because I live close to Kansas City, and we talked once about when
yeah,
you're in town, we should get together. Yeah. Why do I think? Why do I have that hunch? Did you study in Montreal or something?
yeah. I did my master's at McGill, and that's where I got my permanent residency. And yeah,
That's what I'm thinking is that you studied in Montreal and you have residency, and so I was like, oh, this guy's Canadian, but you're a like a barbecue loving Kansan or
oh yeah.
Missouri.
Well, I'm from the Kansas side. Yeah,
Oh, yeah.
pretty
Do you get
close.
back to Kansas very often?
Just for holidays, I like it. It's a great town, and I've worked a bit with the symphony, and I've done some cover conducting, and I did an audition back in the day for assistant conductor, and I try and keep in contact with them. Such a fantastic group and such a great hall.
Cool. Yeah, it
Lovely
is a
town
great
too.
hall. I'm fortunate that I've lived in lots of places, and I lived in L.A. and New York, where are two of the greatest orchestras. And New York is a few, but the greatest orchestras in the country. And then I lived in D.C., where the National Symphony is also great. And then I
Yeah.
lived in Southern Virginia, where there's the Virginia Symphony, also great, but maybe not quite at the same level. But I was shocked, pleasantly shocked, when I got to Kansas City and heard this Kansas City Symphony and was like, holy smokes, this is an amazing orchestra. And I
Yeah.
guess I knew that because they're kind of famous, but I just didn't know that the level was as high as it is. And the hall is gorgeous.
Yeah, I feel like, a lot of those medium-sized cities, people really support the arts. It's got a great art museum too, because in New York, you take it for granted, in Chicago and these places, but in Kansas City, small enough that people really, really appreciate it, and they give their dollars and they show up. So yeah, it's a cool town.
Yeah, and I think I'm just guessing. I have no evidence of this except for my own ears. But I think maybe 100 or 50 years ago, it was different when you went to a small city or one of the not, if you're not in Chicago, New York, Cleveland, for example. But nowadays, I think there's so many great musicians, and it speaks to the quality of musical training in this country and all over the world that small cities, even the orchestras that are like pickup orchestras, they just have to, like there's a lot of great orchestras out there. They don't all sound like Chicago, but I'm pleasantly surprised often when I go to a small-ish city and I hear the orchestra and I'm like, holy cow, this is a good orchestra. I didn't expect it here.
I wish somebody would compile a list of how many people have been studying music throughout the decades. It does seem like there are way more people going to conservatory now, and
Yeah.
way more students and all of these things. And yeah, certain regions, like I live in Colorado, as you know, so like those orchestras, there's so many great regional orchestras all around Boulder and Denver, little
Yeah.
pockets of Ohio's full of them.
Sure. I have a feeling, I don't know because I wasn't around then, but I have a feeling that 70 years ago, the Colorado Symphony or the Kansas City Symphony weren't great. They probably had whoever lived in the area and could play instruments at the time. But nowadays, because people will travel, the Kansas City has an audition, they hire someone from God knows what country or which part of the United States. So yeah, good for music. Bad for people, musicians in conservatory trying to get jobs because it's very competitive. But the good news is there's such a giant pool of talent.
There really is. Yeah.
Speaking of pools of talent, it's a weird segue. Congratulations on Lima.
Thank you. It's actually pronounced Lima.
I knew that. Lima. Thank you.
It's not in Peru. It's in Ohio. But
yeah,
that's an example of one of those orchestras that it's surrounded by. It's in Ohio, but you've got Cleveland and Columbus and Cincinnati and Toledo and Fort Wayne, so all these great regional players, and yeah, it should be wonderful. It should be fun if we can start our season on time, I hope.
Yeah, well, so the announcement came out recently, but you've known for some time, I guess, and then you're supposed to start in September-ish.
Yeah, exactly. We've canceled one concert already, and kind of playing it by ear. It's a smaller city, so we don't know what will happen, but it's great to plan some programs and meet that new orchestra, and I hope we can go through with it. Right now, we're mostly worried about all the choral stuff.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, it sounds like singing is maybe the most dangerous musical activity
Absolutely.
to engage in. So,
but I don't want to go down that road and get all depressed.
Well, it must be like super exciting to have. So, just in case whoever's watching this might not know, but you've been the assistant conductor for 3 professional orchestras. Portland, Maine, am I getting it right? Memphis and Vancouver. I'm interested to ask you like how those experiences got you ready for Lima. And now you've been announced, it's your first music directorship. Very exciting. And then bam, but maybe you can't start right away. Maybe you have to start next spring or whatever your contract says. You won't start maybe making concerts right away. But anyway, it's still exciting, and eventually everything will get back to normal, and then you'll be the music director of the Lima Symphony. That's cool.
Absolutely, yeah. And I'll stay in Vancouver for the first season. I'll do both, but yeah, it's been an interesting ride from Maine to Memphis to Vancouver.
Is your contract in Vancouver expiring after next season then?
It's possible. It kind of depends on what we all want to do. Sure. But such a great city and a great orchestra. I will stay here as long as I can. And we're working on a project right now. It's going to be our first time back as a group. We're collaborating with Vancouver Pride Society and doing a concert for the Vancouver Pride Month. It's going to be like a live streamed variety show with all kinds of different performers. I'm doing a ton of arranging. So I've been arranging Lizzo's Juice and
okay.
And also, the Schubert and Tchaikovsky and all that stuff too. But
yeah, cool. How are you? So it's not going to be live, but it won't be a live audience. But you are performing in a room and streaming it, or recording it and sending it and putting it out later.
Recording it, made to look like it's live with all kinds of local talent. Yeah,
cool.
Which a lot of people will be doing that smaller format, and all these pop shows, that people are doing. We're wondering, how do we do a pop show with a group of 15 players? So there's going to have to be a whole bunch of new charts written. So all the arrangers out there, I think, are going to be and composers will have some new interesting projects.
It's definitely a good time to have those kind of arranging and composing chops. And it sounds like since you said you're doing some arranging, I guess that's a thing you're good at or that you like doing.
I love doing it because, I mean, composition is really hard, and it's a lifelong craft, and you're making something from scratch. But I know how the orchestra works because I'm a conductor and I stare at scores all day, and I learn from Brahms and Debussy and Mahler. So I can take someone else's material and rework it, and you know, I think I'm pretty good at doing that. Creating from scratch, that's really daunting.
Yeah, I actually became a conductor because I wanted to be a composer. My master's degree is in composition. And while I was studying composition, I was required to take a conducting class. And two things happened. I fell in love with conducting, and I found out I'm a pretty good conductor, but maybe not a great composer, which is a hard thing to learn when you're getting your master's degree in composition. Like, I don't think I'm very good at this, but I'm really good at this other thing that I'm not majoring in. But anyway, I do feel like I learned the craft of composing and orchestrating, and I'm a theory nut because I've been trained in it, and so I learned that stuff really well. And then after several years of studying conducting, I feel like if I went back, I'd be a much better composer because I've studied so many scores, so many more scores than I studied at that point in my life. And especially where orchestration is concerned, there's no better way to learn orchestration than just looking at other people's great work.
I think the hardest thing for me would be style, coming up with a distinct style. And I, as you know, having commissioned me for an artwork, that's the hardest thing in art too. Anytime you're like creating something, is to come up with your own unique style. And I'm just absorbing all this classical music, and I think I would just be copying and pasting. And of course, that's what all composers do, but it takes so long to really come up with your own voice.
Well, yeah, and it's a big difference between, when Brahms quotes Bach and the result is like magic. And then when I quote Brahms, it's kind of like, oh, well, you're quoting Brahms. This is not very good at all. So there's definitely a level of, I don't know, I'm not a genius, so maybe that's part of it. But I gave up composing to just do conducting. But now whenever I have to make an arrangement or I have to fix parts or I have to revoice something or, write a part for another instrument, it's a piece of cake for me.
Right.
It sounds like it is for you too, but some conductors struggle with that. Hey, I'm glad you mentioned your artwork because I don't know if I told you this, but this picture of Lily Boulanger that you made for me is like the pride of the living room now. It's right. I wonder if I can show you where it is. Yeah, it's up on the top of my bookshelf there. But it was meant to go in my office at the university. And as soon as you shipped it to me, I pulled it out of the envelope. I showed it to my wife, and she's like, "That's not going anywhere. That's staying right here." So now it's in the house, and I wish it was more prominently displayed, but that's where it is for now. So, how did you At what point did you decide to start drawing, painting, watercoloring, inking?
It really just exploded last summer. Well, 2 summers ago, but before that, I occasionally had doodled here and there, but then I get in these, I don't know if you're like this, I get in these obsessive phases. I always have something I'm currently obsessed with. Like it could be chess, and I have to study chess openings and play chess 5 times a day, or it could be, making art. But so I went to, one of my favorite artists is Egon Schiele, there's a book back there. And I saw a bunch of his works in real life, which I already knew, but I had never seen in Vienna at the Leopold Museum. And something sort of just switched. I wanted to kind of imitate what he was doing. And so I started practicing again and buying supplies. And then it just became this insatiable need. I couldn't stop until I couldn't I couldn't sit anymore because I was too tired. And I would forget about dinner. And I do that with other things. And I used to do that with score study, but because it's my job, I don't have that kind of insatiable drive for it anymore. But one of the things I usually say is that I like how you're actually creating when you're making art. You're not really creating when you're composing, you're conducting. You're not even making any sound. You're interpreting somebody else's creation. And so I feel like I'm not a creative artist as a musician. There's your own voice is there, but you're not actually creating in the purest sense. Not everyone would agree with that, but so to me, it's this fun thing I can say, look, it's done. I'm moving on. Whereas studying Beethoven 5, you're going to do until you're dead. which is,
Right.
in a way, that's actually pretty cool. But I
Yeah.
also like the final product.
Yeah, awesome. Well, yeah, I won't disagree with you on the fact that you're not a creator if you're a conductor, but you're a recreator. And I do like that we produce a product, and you can't say like this is mine because it's not yours, it's Beethoven's. But you realized something that Beethoven had conceptualized and put on paper. And so I do feel like we create sound, and we create, more than anything, we create the environment in which the musicians create the sound because we actually make a sound. But I feel you that when you're conducting, and you said something else that's kind of funny. You said that maybe you're not obsessed with score study anymore because it's your job, and I'm so glad you said that because when people go like, oh, you're a musician, you must do music all the time. You're like, kind of not actually. When I don't have to be doing music, I'd rather be hiking or my thing right now is baking. I just started baking, and so yeah, I got something baking right now.
Like everybody in quarantine, I'm the only person on the planet who hasn't made it's like a sourdough loaf or something.
Right. Yeah. I'm doing my first attempt at baguettes right now, and we'll
Oh,
see.
yeah.
In about an hour, I'll know if it worked or not.
Baguette and espresso. You're just living the dream.
Yeah, super Frenchy. In the moment, right now, I'm obsessed with. I'm a Francophile, obsessed with all things French because
Tu parles un peu de français si tu veux.
oui, j'étudie français maintenant, mais ça va.
Not sure if your audience would appreciate us going into French for the rest of the interview.
Probably not. And plus, my French is awful, but I am getting better at it. Yeah, I've been studying it pretty consistently for a year or two, and yeah, there's that.
Nice.
I'll brag on something. You want to hear my big brag at the moment? I love languages. That's another hobby of mine. I spend a lot of time practicing, and when I travel, I try as much as possible to speak whatever language is in that country, especially in Europe. And so at CU Boulder, where we both studied, we both did some doctoral work at CU Boulder. I think I might be the first DMA student to have passed the Italian proficiency, German proficiency, and French proficiency. And you only have to do one, but I was like, what the heck? I'm going to go all out.
Nice.
And just make a point.
Through the university you did that?
Yeah, through the university. Yeah. And the deans and everybody were like, you don't have to, you just take one test, you pass it, you're good to go. You're going to get out of here. But I was like, what if I took a French class in addition? That would also check the box. So, but I didn't just do it to brag or show off. I like languages, and when I was younger and I was going to rehearsals of some conductors that I idolized at the time or that I respected a lot. I noticed in Europe, especially, that they all spoke the language of whatever orchestra they were working with. So I would be in Paris, for example, watching a rehearsal, and Eschenbach would show up and he spoke French fluently. Like, oh, that's cool. And then I'd be in Berlin watching a rehearsal, and Abada was there, and he's speaking German fluently. And I was in Italy watching a rehearsal, and there's Zubanmeda speaking Italian. And I came to realize that these guys at the top of their game, they all are fluent in all these languages, and some of them may more, like Russian, or Hebrew, or whatever. And so when I was 20 years younger than I am now, I set this goal. I'm going to learn languages to the best of my ability, particularly the European languages. Nowadays, I'm thinking about studying Chinese or something else. I don't know. Maybe
Yeah.
Russian.
Yeah, it's very hard for people living in North America when you're working in Europe from your childhood, of course you're going to pick up a little Italian, and and it's just so much easier. It's all around you. You could walk down the street and find somebody to practice French with, but in Kansas City, that's more of a undertaking.
Yeah, right. I'm originally from Texas, and it's not uncommon in Texas for people to speak Spanish.
Yeah.
There's a big Latin American, like Latino population, and then a lot of white folks also speak Spanish. But I just love languages, and I also feel like it informs my study of the scores a little bit. One of my favorite scores that has crazy languages in it is the Nutcracker score. In the original Nutcracker score, there's Russian, French, Italian, and German all in the score. And yeah, we all have that dictionary of foreign musical terms, so you don't need to speak German to study, a Mahler symphony, for example. But if you do, it's a little bit richer.
I love the Tchaikovsky French. Actually, I love the Tchaikovsky Italian because he never really learned how to speak Italian properly. And I can't remember if it's one of his symphonies where there's a word that's just not a word at all. And
Oh, really?
I don't know if it was him or if it was the publisher. I think it might be in the number 5 or 6. I asked a whole bunch of friends. I was looking up this word, and it's just not a word.
It's just not a word. And a weird side issue we don't have to spend a lot of time on. But what does allegretto mean exactly? There's no translation of it. It's like faster than andante, slower than allegro. But I sometimes like when I look at a terminology, I like to know what exactly does that word mean,
Is that like
unconjugated.
diminutive etto?
Yeah, it's like a little allegro.
Yeah, but then how
Allegro-ish.
does that actually? I like to go back to the Leopold Mozart's violin book because he talks about tempos, and because there's that question in Mozart 40, I think it's allegro like assai and allegro molto allegro,
Right.
and he actually writes the difference between the two like in a list. And so obviously Wolfgang knew what his dad's ideas were. But yeah, some of these things, it's so subjective. Or those very vague things like un poco sostenuto.
Just a little.
Yeah.
I'm writing about Brahms right now, and I was writing about his third movement, First Symphony, which is un poco allegretto e grazioso. So it's allegretto, which is faster than walking pace, but a little slower than happy. A little bit allegretto, and also gracefully. I don't know what tempo this is. And then if you listen to the great recordings, the tempos range from like super slow to kind of fast.
Yeah, it's really leaving it up to how much coffee you had.
Yeah. Well, I guess that's why I'm a fast tempo guy, because I drink.
Yeah.
Well, what's next for you? How are you killing time now? Are you drawing and painting and watercoloring a lot? Are you just doing these? What's the deal?
I got a new iPad and Apple pencil so I can use this Procreate digital app, and I was going crazy, but then it came deadline time for all these arrangements. So at the moment I'm arranging Unchained Melody by the Righteous Brothers.
Okay, it's a good one.
Yeah.
It was great when Vivaldi wrote it too.
What?
It was great when Vivaldi wrote it as well.
Is it similar to Vivaldi?
It is. There's a bunch of concerti and other pieces that he wrote that have literally the same chord progression. But that's like all pop music. You can find it in Handel and Vivaldi.
16451. It's in.
Yeah.
Books
Huda wrote it all long before we were around.
Yeah. So yeah, after that, I don't know. We're doing this show, and I need to get out of town. I got cabin fever, but that's not really allowed.
Yeah, I also feel like going away and doing something, and all my gigs and travel have been canceled for the whole summer with the exception of one trip I have to make to New Mexico, and I'm really nervous about going, but I'm also excited to like get in the car and go somewhere.
Oh, absolutely.
Cool.
I'm jealous about that.
Well, I don't want to take you away from your arrangements and all the other things you have to do, so it seems like a good time to wrap it up. I'll just say congratulations again on Lima and all the things you're doing, and good luck.
Thanks. Good to chat with you.
Oh yeah, thanks for having coffee with me.
Absolutely. Cheers.